It's interesting because I've known you for so long. I was actually talking with somebody that we both know the other day and trying to figure out when we first met. I actually don't remember meeting you. I feel like you just like maybe this is a simulation and at some point you just got implanted into my brain. It's like, oh yeah, it's MidaZ. I
don't remember either.
I remember seeing you before I met you.
That makes sense though.
I remember we were both in Orlando and there was a venue that was in a small shopping plaza off University where like there was a bookstore for the University of Central Florida.
Yes.
And I remember seeing you perform there. This probably was like 2003, 2004.
Yeah, this would have been so right quick, one thing that I want you to take under your belt as a project that I would love to partake in. I'm going to put this in the ether right now.
Yeah.
Because you're actually the perfect person to spearhead this. You've got to do a documentary on the Hush Show.
I know.
And Conscious, our mutual friend, has the footage.
That's going to be the hardest part is getting the footage from him.
I saw him the other day. We'll talk later. But he's got the footage.
All right, so for those who don't know, the Hush Show was an event that was done in Orlando on the campus of the University of Central Florida that basically was an incredible stomping ground, not just for the local talent that would emerge and propagate in the city, but a lot of people who have gone on to do amazing things on a national and an international level. A lot of people don't know that the seeds of battle rap come from Orlando.
There's a lot that came from that, man.
And it was just an amazing time. And maybe I also saw you. A lot of influence. And it's underreported on. But I might have seen you at a Hush Show around then too. And then I also remember seeing you like at the record store that was on campus as well.
Right. Well, I brought up the Hush Show because that University Boulevard bookstore was after the Hush Show left the college.
Yeah.
That was one of the places that it was trying to be resurrected at.
Right.
So you that was probably a later Hush Show that we were both at.
Right. So I bring all of that up to say that I know you for a while, and there are undoubtedly people listening and watching this who are familiar with you. But I also feel that in the realm of the questions and people who maybe are more familiar with you as the guy who, does the Making Illmatic thing. Yeah. Like for people who don't know the breadth of the discog and they don't know where do you sort of envision or position yourself as an artist presently? Because I've also seen you evolve over the last 2 decades basically. What kind of zone and pocket do you feel you sort of sit in with this project particularly? Devil's Playground.
Yeah. So I've always had I started working on music professionally, I'd say maybe in 2005 or 2006. I did stuff even before that, but in a real way, probably 2005, 2006. And I think, I always had a vision of two things. I always had a vision of what kind of music I wanted to make. And I also always had a vision of what I wanted to sound like on those tracks. Like I always knew what I wanted to, how I wanted to rap and what that sounded like. Yo, it's real wild osmosis because I knew what I wanted to sound like years before I figured out how to sound like it. Everything I was telling somebody the other day, everything that I've done, everything that I did from 1996 when I was writing my first raps to probably 2013 was testing grounds of me trying to match this sound that I had in my head. I had it from then. But part of it was I didn't have the know-how. Another part of it was I didn't know the right people to collaborate with to pull it, right? So it took a long time and a lot of ups and downs and circumstance to get to the sound of this record. You know,
but how would you
like,
sum that up? Like, how would you describe that sound?
You know, I was real early on wanting to do, you know, stuff over drumless stuff. Now, let me be clear. I love rhyming on drums too. Like, this is not like a thing where it's like, hey, I only wanted to do drumless hip hop. Nah, but now it's bastardized because a lot of people do it. But when I was first thinking about it, nobody was doing it. You know what I'm saying?
You were super early. You were super early. You were super early. Like much to the chagrin of me, particularly.
Yeah.
I was very staunchly anti drums. Like in the beginning, I was just like, why? Like I love so much of your older stuff where the drums were hard and you had drums from like Czarism and I Make Mad Beats and stuff.
Yep.
So I was resistant. But you know, I'll take the L now. Like, you definitely were A, ahead of the curve, and B, do it very, very well.
Yeah. No, I was really, really, really early on that, wanting to be my sound and like, I guess my defining sound, because it's not the only thing that I do, but it was, you know, one of my favorite records coming up, and it's actually like, it's my favorite Wu-Tang song, and it's one of my favorite songs, is Heaven and Hell, Raekwon and Ghostface. And I just remember the emotion that record created to me. Like, to me, that record is emotional when I hear it. And it's, you know, it's basically a drumless loop, right? So like, and then like, I remember hearing like America is Dying Slowly. You know, and just being able to capture the emotion, and I started to think about music in a way of being like, yeah, bro, like hip hop when it's boom bap, that's this thing, but I want to do like emotional, cinematic music. Like, that was kind of where my head was. I want to do emotional cinematic music, and a big part of this is like, again, when I say I knew what I wanted to sound like, I knew what kind of voice I had, right? And I kept, like, I thought when I would listen to myself, like, man, I really clash with the drums a lot. Like, that's something that I used to think, and I'm saying a lot's happening, and when I'm already doing too much and then the drums are doing too much, there's too much going on. This is a lot, right? And to me, it started to feel like a battle between, when you listen to this track, are you listening to me or are you listening to this? And I want you to listen to me. So I wanted to create music in which there was space for me to tell my stories and for you to hear my stories. I think that was the biggest thing. So like, I went to a Sean Price show once, and my whole perspective on like performing and even recording, even advanced, like this idea even advanced at this Sean Price show, because I had never been to a hip hop show in which somebody was rapping on stage and people in the crowd were hanging on the words, the bars. So here's what I mean. You'll go to a Nas show and you'll rap every lyric, but you know the lyrics, right? Like, you've heard the album 38 times, right? Like, to watch Sean Price kick a verse on stage that nobody in the crowd knew the verse, and everybody sat there and hung on the words. So every bar he spit, somebody turned to the left and said, yo, did you hear what he said? I'm going, I need to get there, because I'm doing that. Like, I'm doing that. I'm saying wild stuff, but I'm on stage rapping and people in the crowd are not hearing me. They're hearing me, but they ain't hearing me.
Right.
And I work too hard on these bars for y'all to not hear me. They're crazy, right? So there was a lot of that going on, to where I got to the space where I was like, yeah, I really want what I'm saying to be heard clearer. I want to clash less. And again, you know, I was talking to somebody the other day, you know, I'm not making music to dance to. That's not It's not what I'm doing. I'm making the kind of music I like to listen to, you know, when I'm driving or you know, when I'm feeling introspective and things of that nature. So that was really the impetus of kind of just the style of this record was, you know, I was looking for a producer who, you know, back in 2012 and 13, I did this record, Loops and Loops 2, where I just looped up stuff and rhymed on it. And it was really because at the time, I didn't really know anybody who, like, if I present, like, I'm not a producer, but if I had a sample, like, I would be like, yeah, I want you to freak this, but, like, not overproduce it. And, like, I didn't really know who to turn to achieve that sound in my head. So I just looped up stuff and rhymed on it myself. And it really wasn't until I met my man Deli that I was able to realize that, okay, he understands the sound that I'm talking about, the vision that I'm talking about, as far as, hey, you hear this sample? You hear it the way I hear it though, right? Yo, that's crazy. Do what you do. And we started to have some symmetry. So, but all of that really started from way back then. But I had the idea and the vision for this sound back then.
So that raises a question that ties into, I had reached out to the Questions Patreon and let them know we were going to do this. And I got a good question from it that I wanted to share with you, and I think kind of ties into what you just spoke about. It's from Sam Sneeze, and it's about the collaborative process. And he wanted to know, what kind of collaborative environment do you feel most comfortable making music? One where there is a set concept that needs to be fine-tuned, or one where it's completely spontaneous and comes together organically? Now, I know you've done both types of things, but I don't actually know what your preference is as a writer. And I'm also curious what it's like, or what it was mostly like with this project specifically.
Well, this project sits in a whole different space than a lot of stuff. But in general, you know, I'm an assassin, right? So like, I'm a work for hire, right? So like, if I kind of morph to whatever the creative process is going to be, I can kind of sit in all those spaces. What I prefer is going back to what I was just saying about, even, you know, when we were talking about drums a second ago, I like space. I like freedom because I have ideas, I have thoughts, I have concepts, it's all swirling around in here. I'll say that the hardest thing to work on is when I get a real specific, instruction. That's a little difficult. And what makes that a little difficult is not that it's difficult to write the concept. The concepts themselves or whatever, I can write any concept. The difficulty is, and this goes kind of back to what we were just talking about as well, and to the Devil's Playground, I write emotional music. Now, what's interesting is you may not understand what I mean by emotional music, because I'm not like every song like, yo, my aunt was there for me and then, you know, like she passed away. Like, that's not...
Because she was actually never there for you. That was the big thing. Yeah.
No, she might hear this. She definitely was. But it's not that kind of emotional. What I mean by emotional music is I have an emotional connection to the music that's being created. So when I hear a beat, I have to marry the music.
You know, this term might be a little played out and ubiquitous at this point, but I think that it's maybe even closer than emotional. It's kind of the vibe. Not in the way that's vibe is abused at this point. There's like, oh, it's a vibe. It's a vibe. Like, yeah, we get it. Everything's a vibe.
It is. But like, I would even say it's on another level than just a vibe, because it's like I have to emotionally connect to the music. For you to get the best version of me, I've gotta really feel it. And the struggle with that is that if I really feel it, then your idea may not be what I really feel.
Right.
And that's really difficult. So like, producer will send me a beat. This used to happen to me a lot back in the day. I think I've earned a lot of trust in the years, because this doesn't happen to me much anymore, but back in the day, I used to get beats with concepts attached all the time, right? So
Don't worry, there's a hook already on the song, so you just write the reps.
Yeah, like, no, I already have a hook. And like, so what I want you to do here, you're going to rap from the perspective of Spider-Man, right?
Don't worry, we already got you. I got my girl, she's singing the hook on the song. Yo, I'm a zebra. The song is about being a zebra.
Right. And I would so just when you told me that, I would go, oh, okay, cool, right? Like, whatever. Then I'd play the beat and I'd be like, I don't hear that at all. Like, I hear a whole different set of circumstances. I hear a corner store. I'm hearing this, and so now writing the zebra story is like, it's like a clash of concepts in my brain that don't work together. So collaborative is best for me best for me, not impossible, but best for me when I have space and I get to be creative as well.
Yeah, I think in many respects, what you're describing is that you're also a producer, in that you're actually you're not just like, hey, rap on the song, do the raps. Yes, all I'll do is write the raps. So that makes sense. You had mentioned earlier that you feel this project has the fingerprint or imprint of COVID on it.
Oh, yeah.
Not in a literal sense. I mean, look, it's safe to stream the album. You'll be fine. But in what way? Because I know you had mentioned earlier, and as much as you want to, or want to, sort of allude to however you want to about your process and your experiences. What are the main imprints on Devil's Playground in terms of what happened in 2020 and moving forward?
Yeah, so Deli and I started working on Where the Sidewalk Ends, I'd say in 2018.
That was the previous album that you put out.
Right.
Or actually the 2 albums ago or 2 projects ago, right?
Right. But Where the Sidewalk Ends is pretty much the spiritual predecessor to Devil's Playground. Like, even the stuff in between, we were working on Where the Sidewalk Ends, and then we started working on The Devil's Playground, right? So like, it kind of sits like that. But we were working on Where the Sidewalk Ends, and towards, like, I think we had finished the last song, because Where the Sidewalk Ends came out February of 2020. February of 2020. By the last song that we were writing and recording for Where the Sidewalk Ends, that's when I started feeling sick. I wasn't feeling well. My back was hurting. Wasn't feeling so well, which then led to a million doctor visits and finding out that I was diagnosed with cancer, with lymphoma. And I got my diagnosis in the first week of January of 2020, right? So COVID hadn't hit yet.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm in the hospital. Like, I went to the emergency room, like, trying to see what's good, and then I was in the hospital for 31 days in a row, right? Like, just from the emergency room visit. So, number one, I had a plan for Sidewalk to come out in February, and like, I was hell bent on making sure that it happened no matter what, even though I was in the hospital. And like, the being in the hospital thing is a thing. Like, I had never spent time in the hospital. I didn't know what that life was like. And so I was, it's very isolating. It's, there was a lot going on. My diagnosis wasn't great. We didn't know if I was coming out of this or if I wasn't coming out of this, right? So, like, the thing that I leaned into a lot during that time in the 31 days in the hospital was, I kept telling Deli, send me beats. I was like, yo, send me beats. Yo, and like, shout out to, I know Dilla did a lot in the hospital towards the end. Like, I get it. Like, I was in there and I was like, yo, send me beats. It was, I was writing a lot in the hospital.
But what was your thought process in that? Like, is it just like, I need to pass the time? This makes me feel better, so I want to do it? Or was there like an uncertainty about, like, I need to get these out now because I don't know what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Where was your head at?
I was bored mainly, right? Like I was like, yo, I can't do anything. Like
Right.
I'm just laying, like when I was, the way that my diagnosis worked, like I had all this debilitating back pain. I couldn't walk, like I was laid up in the bed, I'm not a huge TV watcher, you know what I'm saying? So like there wasn't anything for me to do besides sit there and like be in pain and like that's it, and like talk to people and stuff. So I was really bored and I was like, I need to, and the problem with the boredom in that sense is all you think about is your pain and what's going to happen, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen next. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? I have a surgery in 2 days. What's this surgery going to be like? Is it going to suck? Like, I needed reprieve from those thoughts.
It sounds like you needed a hip hop trivia card game. Really,
that would have been quite helpful for some of those long hospital nights. But I needed other things to think about. You know what I'm saying? And when I hear a beat that I have an emotional connection to, it transports me to another place where I'm not thinking about everything that's happening on planet Earth, right? So like for me, it was a way to escape the circumstance a little bit for an hour here, an hour there, and just kind of like when I was in the zone writing something, laying in the bed, writing on my phone, for that hour, I was not in the hospital. I was not, I was the beast. I was the murderer, you know what I'm saying? And I was back in that zone. So like that was, and I was telling Deli, like, Deli would send me like 6 beats and I'd be like, send me 6 more. And he would send me 6 more and I'd be like, I need more, bro. Like, he'd be like, and he would text me back like, yo, I sent you like 14 beats yesterday. And I'm like, yeah, I wrote to 11 of them. Like, I need you to send me more. You know what I mean? And it was honestly, it was the thing that kept me, I think, working on, and at the time I didn't know I was working on Devil's Playground. I was just writing, right? But it was the thing that kept me jazzed up and kept my spirits high while I was going through that whole thing. So how it connects to COVID is I get ready to, I'm getting ready to get discharged. I'm going to start chemotherapy. I think I started chemo the first or second, like the second week of February. I think I come home and I start chemo, and I put out where the sidewalk ends. Like right when I got out, I put out where the sidewalk ends. But then at the same time, like I get home and like there's conversation about this COVID thing. I remember a friend of mine was like, hey man, like there's this thing going on. It looks like it's coming to the US. It's going to be a problem. And, it was funny because one of my biggest concerns when I was in the hospital was, man, when I get home, I'm going to, like, all my friends are going to be out and like having fun. And I remember in the hospital, they told me like, I was going to have to wear a mask. And they were like, you're going to have to wear a mask because your immune system's going to be so low and you can't like be getting sick and stuff. And I'm like, so I'm going to be like walking in Publix with a mask on. Like people are going to be looking at me all crazy. Go figure.
Silver lining. Yeah.
Yeah. So life, my first session of chemo was my first session or two was kind of like in the regular world. And then COVID hits. And, now, like while everybody was like worried about COVID didn't really stress me out that much. I was worried about cancer.
You were dealing with something way more immediate and personal.
I was like, hey guys, I'm already sick. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm not even stressing. So like, I was super in the house, not doing anything, just kind of in a whatever. But I got home and the first thing that I really wanted to do was record all these joints that I wrote in the hospital. And the crazy thing about it was, you get home. I wasn't working at my day job. I wasn't really working because I was, going through chemo, and then COVID hits. So then nobody's working, right? And like for the job that I work at, there was everything was stopped for a while. So all I had to do was, work on my health, but I was waking up and coming in the lab and recording all of those joints, and then still telling Deli, like, send me more, because I'm home. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need stuff to kind of occupy my thought process. So
right.
I counted. We were, Devil's Playground is an album of 15 songs. We recorded like 240 songs in 2020.
Woo!
Yeah. Like,
and do you think that more of those will like maybe be grouped on another project, or like?
I'm sure they'll pop up on different things. We've been talking about different ways, because the 15. How some people say, well, we picked the best 15 joints. I don't even think that's the case.
You picked the worst 15, right?
Yeah, well, right. It's the worst. We picked the 15 songs that kind of fit each other for the concept of the idea of the project. But there's a lot of good records, and they'll fit different concepts of different records, because they weren't all in the same vein. So like I released last year 84, 87. 84, 87's got a real upbeat, it's a much more fun album than Devil's Playground. We recorded all those songs at the same time.
Right.
So we were recording all kinds of different songs that just kind of fit different concepts and things of that nature. But they'll come. But we were that number is because we were recording like crazy. He was home making beats, a million beats. I was home able to write, and I'm already a quick writer as it is, and I've got the lab, and I was able to just kind of quickly bang out. So we went wild and crazy. So that's really like the impetus of like where the record came from.
Look, I have a lot of sympathy and understanding for anybody who spent those years just doing what they needed to maintain and get by, because I totally understand it and get it. But it's so dope, the people that I do know who actually really use that time to have somewhat unprecedented productivity and creativity. And I see parallels to what you're describing with what, I was kind of doing with the questions and some of the other projects that happened. Mm-hmm. Now, you talk about themes on the album and, sort of curating, putting together things that made sense for the Devil's Playground concept. What are some of those themes or sort of concepts that you think turn up a lot in the songs? Because I think we should also say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong if there were things that like I didn't pick up on when I've heard the record, but this is not the MidaZ rapping about he has cancer album. To my ears, I don't even know. With what I know about you, I wouldn't be surprised if there are actually no songs that you ever recorded. Okay, out of the 200, there's no cancer.
There's two songs that mention it.
Wow.
But they're not about it. There's nothing about it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make that clear, because this is obviously was a big impact, but like this is not the triumphant battle over illness album. No. The face that you just made, it was such a like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm not gonna fucking rap about that shit.
No, I'm not.
So
no,
what are the themes that sort of pop up in this collection of the 15 that you chose for the album?
Yeah, so where the cancer does come into play is, the boredom. So I was listening to who's that? What's your man's the Chuck Klosterman.
Oh yeah.
So I was listening to a podcast with Chuck Klosterman, and he was talking about the concept of boredom. Him and Bill Simmons. They were going back and forth about the concept of boredom and its effect on society. People are less innovative because there's less boredom. Boredom bred innovation because you had time to think, right? And now people don't spend a lot of time thinking because every second of your day you're consumed with something, some sort of media, some sort of this. Like, you used to sit on the toilet and you used to just think. you know, and then you sat on the toilet with a magazine, and now you sit on the toilet with your phone, right? He was even saying like at the, you know, the last sacred spot was like at stoplights, and now at stoplights everybody's got a phone up.
It's wild.
Yeah,
it's wild.
like nothing sacred as it pertains to you know, time to think. And like the Devil's Playground really came from me having nothing but time to think. You know? So like I thought it was a real crazy like dichotomy of like I was really fascinated about it, because when I heard it I was like, you know, I never thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. Like this concept of like innovation comes from boredom, and like maybe we'll see less innovation because there's less boredom. And then I was dumb bored. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was just like, I have nothing but time to think. So like this album and a lot of that stuff that was written, but you know, it came from just this idea, and that's where the title came from. You know, it's an idle mind is the devil's playground. And I had a real idle mind during that stretch, you know. And so then I feel like I was hearing beats different, but honestly, it was less about the beats, and it was, I mean, which the production is crazy. Shout out Deli, but it was more about the way I wanted to rap. This album was I wanted to rap a certain way. I wanted to really get close and or achieve the like nirvana of like what I've been trying to sound like for 20 years now, right? Which was, you know, I wanted to be super skilled, but use less words doing it. Which I think for most people who listen to hip hop, for novices, you know, the more words you can cram, the iller you are. You know, the more words you can use, the iller you are. But I started getting really fascinated by space and, you know, dragging words and using my voice as an instrument. But then I wanted all of that to happen and still say complex, ill things.
Right, not just to be style over substance, kind of both. Yeah.
I didn't want to have style over. I wanted to have a marriage of like, oh, wait a minute, what he just did's crazy because he didn't stuff a whole bunch of words in there. He said da, and it means this. Like, that's kind of where I was going with it. And, you know, that idle time that I had, you know, of kind of going through all of that and the world being shut down, I think gave me the space to think differently about writing, which allowed for, you know, I think how some of these songs came out.
Yeah, I totally hear that, and it's definitely a progression. It's been so interesting to know you personally and also to listen to so much of your music as it's evolved. And I just think that the goal that you want for any artist is that they become more self-assured and more identifiable with their own style. And I think that that's really where you're at with this, where it doesn't sound like you have a sound. You have an approach. You have an aesthetic that is its own. There are things, of course, we're always going to compare to other artists. Yeah, there's influence, and there's, like, you could say contemporaries are sort of operating in the same lane, especially now that everybody got on the early MidaZ, like the Atkins diet for drums, you know, like cutting out the drums. But, you know, to me, it's something that I want, and I'm hopeful that, you know, more people get on board with it as the style becomes even more self-assured and more its own identity, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But also at the same time, you're at a stage in your career where you're clicked up with a new click, which is, you know, Planet Asia and Gold Chain. Yeah. And, you know, I don't even actually know how that came about. I know that you've known Asia, but I just feel like I was talking to you as we speak frequently. You're just like, one day you were just like, yeah, Gold Chain music, Gold Chain. And I was like, okay, like, and I was like, yeah, I know what he's talking about. I was like, what is he talking about? And then I was like, oh, okay, he's like down with Planet Asia and a whole slew of other artists. So tell me about the sort of development of that, and what is that relationship like with fucking Planet Asia?
Yeah, he's a legendary lyricist. I mean, Planet Asia is one of the GOATs. Planet Asia is ill. There's so many rooms that I go in. Like, I was actually telling him this the other day. His name is like a green card in rooms. It's bugged out. Like, I'll be in a room and I'll be like, no, Planet Asia. And dudes will be like, oh, you know Planet Asia? And this comes from every different aspect.
Or to go back to a previous example, it's the speakeasy code that gets you through the back door. You just say Planet Asia at the door, and like, here's the real entrance.
I'm constantly surprised. I mean, and maybe I shouldn't be, but I'm constantly surprised about, and it's not just people like, oh, I know of. He's met all these people. He's met everybody like on the planet. So like, I'll be in a room and I'll be like, yeah, Planet Asia, and I'll be like, oh, that's my man, and I'm like, word? Like, how is this possible? He's an everyman, but then he's a superhuman at the same time. So, big shout out to Planet Asia. What basically happened is, I knew Planet Asia for a while through Zarism. Him and Zarism did Via Satellite, the album. Czar was gracious enough to allow me to partake in a couple of the records on there, and
I also played bass on one of those records as well. I'm on the Via Satellite album as well.
Hold on, which joint did you do bass on?
I don't remember.
I didn't even know this.
I am on there. I forget the name of it. I want to say, no, I don't remember.
Is it one of the ones I'm on?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll drop it in. We'll go back and listen, and I'll drop it in. But yeah.
But like I said, Czar was gracious enough to allow me to partake on that record, and Planet Asia was gracious enough to allow me to partake in that record because it was a big record for those guys at the time, and I'm on there 3 or 4 times, something like that. And, like, nobody's on that record, like, as a guest, there wasn't nobody on that record 3 times, you know what I'm saying, or anything like that. And, that's Planet Asia's album, so he could have got anybody to be on those spots. But, they had me in those spots, and I was gracious to, I was very thankful to have that opportunity. But what ended up happening was, me and PA just developed a friendship, and every now and again get on the phone, text, whatever, this, that, and the third. He did the favors for me, jumped on some of my stuff, whatever like that. Well, that was back in 12,
12, yeah, because he was on AU, I remember.
Yeah. So whatever in that era was when all that took place. So,
by the way, before you get into that, I can confirm it was a song you were on. It's the song Essence.
Oh, Fire.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was, that album came out a while ago, and we worked. That album was like a long time in the making too. So
yeah, it was. That's the other thing people don't understand is that album was probably three years or so in the making. It was a long time coming, but
yeah.
So anyway, stayed in contact or whatever. But this is the funniest part of the story. I got a phone call from Planet Asia in I got a phone call from him in 2020, toward the end of 2020, after I would say September-ish. So at least in Florida, the world is starting to get back to normal, because we
not quite in LA. Yeah, no, it wasn't the case.
So September-ish of 2020, I just get a very cold random call. I probably haven't talked to Planet Asia in 3 years at this point, right? My phone rings, it says Planet Asia on it. I answer, I'm like, yo, peace. He literally said, and shout out to PA, he's always yelling, like he just talks loud. So I was like, hello. He's like, hey, yo, MidaZ. I'm like, what's up? He was like, you my artist now.
Wow.
And I was like, huh? And pretty much this is how the conversation went. And he's like, yo, you my artist now. He was like, you and me, man. I got you, man. Gold chain. I'm revamping this gold chain thing. And, I want you in, you and me. And I was like, all right. And he was like, all right, peace. And then that was the conversation.
So this explains why you explained it to me in a similar way, where you just one day I was on the phone with you, you're like, yeah, I'm Planet Asia now, gold chain. And I was like, wait, what? There's no okay.
Yeah, it kind of happened that way. So I was like, I ain't no doubt. And, me and him have an ill chemistry as far as just how we see words, how we see lyrics, how we like production. So, in that space, it's a great collaboration. But yeah, that's how it was presented. And, from there, we just started working on things and, kind of, he's been laying the seeds for, which is interesting because the Gold Chain album drops on February 3rd as well as Devil's Playground. So it's kind of an ill, symmetry of things where both of those projects kind of drop on the same day, about how this Gold Chain thing came to be. And it's led to, now him and I have a collaborative album on the way too. So big shout out to my big bro, Planet Asia, for his support. He's the best.
You're certainly not a new artist by any means. So
yeah.
Your collaboration and affiliation with him is probably not going to look the same as it would had this happened to you when you were very fresh, wet behind the ears.
Yeah.
But what would you say has that experience been in being kind of closer in his circle? Has there been anything that you've sort of observed or kind of peeped from him that has maybe it informs your writing, or maybe it just informs the vision of what an album is, or beyond being like the password that earns you credibility and points with anybody in the continental United States?
Yeah.
What are any other sort of things that you've taken and learned from him in this time?
Nah, he's a scientist. He has writing on, as good as he is, and he's amazing, he's got writing on autopilot. I don't even know that it's no sweat. There's no sweat on his brow to write. He writes flawlessly. So we'll be a beat will come on and and here's the thing, I think I write like that too, until I'm in the room with him and I'm like, God, man, this dude's different. So the beat will come on and I'll sit there and I'll be like, okay. And then I'll start writing, and I think I'm coming up with some things, and I got a couple lines, and then I'll look and be like, yo, what you got? And he'll start rapping and I'll be like, what? That's what you did in the last 10 minutes? This literally happened the other day. We were in the studio with Terminology. Shout out Terminology. And he went into a different room, and when he came back, I didn't even know that he was working on a rap. We didn't even know he was working on a rap at all. And he walked in, and when he walked in, I think Term was spitting his verse to me, and I was like, woo. And then when Term finished, Asia starts rapping, and we just looked over like, what? That's what you did in the last 10 minutes, bro? Rip my shit up, throw it away, whatever. It's just, I think the idea of just being, he's just, when it comes to writing and recording, he's a uber professional. So I think what I've learned sitting under his learning tree is just how to be more efficient, and how to be a more effective, writer, in the sense of it's like he just clocks in the work and does the work. It's not even a thing. Oh, need a verse? All right. Boom, 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 boom. Done. All right. What's up? What are we doing next? That's how he, and I say that, but I have to make sure I remove the disrespect because it's amazing.
Right.
It's not that he just does it and then some cookie cutter shit comes out. He does that and the most amazing thing you ever heard comes out. But I think a message I would like to get to listeners of this is when you hear those ridiculous raps that he does them easily. There's no
it's not like toiled over with like revisions.
No, none of it. I watch the process. It takes seconds. It's bananas.
Wow. So with this album and with this project, it's such an interesting space that we've all been in when it comes to releasing projects. The world has changed so much. I'm thinking about, the last album that we worked on together before I moved and we no longer lived close to each other it feels like it's a different era completely now. It's like it's a different planet. Like, but everything, not even just like the way that you carry yourself musically, but just the world that we exist in is different. It was like, blogs and
different
and CDs and, all those things still exist, but it is different. And what's interesting about you too, is that you've already checked off so many things that most artists will probably never accomplish. And when I say that, I mean, you do have a fan base that will check for you off the name alone. You've worked on songs with incredible producers, not just the ones that we know and have slept on floors with together, but I'm talking about the Alchemists and the Onos and the Marco Polos, and collaborated with a lot of artists that, some you caught when they were on their rise, some were already, risen. Like you've got the Planet Asia collab album on deck. I know you've worked with Rock Marciano before. There's a lot of different people. So when it comes to the time of releasing an album like Devil's Playground, what will be the metric for you that deems it to be effective and success? Because and let me couch that with saying obviously if you make something dope and you love it and people love it, then it's a success. It's great, you make the art. But is there anything for you in your career now that sort of will be the meter mover of man, it'd be really dope if this happens from this, that this is the next step I'm trying to take?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to feel, and maybe a lot of artists feel this way, I don't know, but I tend to feel like I think I do weird music, right? So I think I do not so easily consumed music. It's a point of contention sometimes with me and some people that I talk to and work with, but I think I do music that's just not easy to digest. So I am always surprised when anybody likes what I'm doing. I'll be honest. I'm always like, oh, you I know I do good. I know it's good, but I also don't feel like my music always finds the listener that it's intended for, I guess you could say. So, the biggest metric for me is just getting more ears on it, and getting more, being able to go find all those people who feel like I do, and listen how I listen, where this might be something transformative to them in the way that Heaven and Hell was transformative to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm still, I really want, I know they're out there. I want to find those people and go, hey, guess what? Somebody's thinking about you too. I know everybody wants to hear 6,000 drums on a song. I get it. But there's people like me out there. I know where you at. And I know that there's people who like these concepts and this style of music. And I'm just constantly looking for them. When we put out Sidewalk, I had no expectation on Sidewalk. I was sick. I wasn't even thinking about nothing on Sidewalk. Listen, Sidewalk is the album that people talk to me about the most. Anybody I talk to, it's Sidewalk. Hey, that album did this to me. That album did that to me. And I'm like, really? If that's the case, Devil's Playground is going to hit you a lot differently, because I tend to think that Devil's Playground is Sidewalk on steroids. So, if you really like that energy that was on Sidewalk, I think Devil's Playground will give you a lot more of that. But again, I just want to touch more of the people who are looking for something a little bit different. And like even in the sense of, I had a friend tell me like, yo man, this Griselda's jumping now. Like I bet you your music is getting a lot more juice and everything with this Griselda thing. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't do Griselda music.
Right.
Like could some of the BPMs be similar? Sure. Can some of the samples be similar? Sure. But we're not doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't even expect people, who like Conway the Machine to get MidaZ the Beast. We're not doing the same thing. I don't think it's the same genre, personally. You know what I'm saying? I think, that's the thing about hip hop. Hip hop's got genres upon genres, within genres, under genres. You know what I'm saying? I think there's so many defining traits to hip hop, and I think I sit in a little slice, a little corner. Like for instance, just because you like Family Guy doesn't mean you're gonna like Rick and Morty. Like it's not the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
And I think my music is a little bit of an offshoot of a bunch of different influences that I'm just real excited to get people to hear. And I'd like to be on some of them year-end lists of because being on some of them year-end lists would tell me, okay, no, people are connecting with this. You know what I'm saying? Like that's I want to broaden the base a little bit, but with people who get it.
Well, I definitely think you're on the path to doing that. You have been doing that, and it's been great to watch it. And I'm honestly I'm grateful to be able to watch it, to often get the sneak preview of it, to get the early access to it. And I'm so happy that you've got yet another one to add to the catalog. And I'm honestly just honored to call you my friend. So
hey, likewise. So listen, as we wrap this up, Devil's Playground, February 3rd.
It's out.
Doing a live stream on February 2nd, but
this is going to come out.
This will be out after that live stream. But Devil's Playground, February 3rd. The Questions game is out now. It's so out now that it's like you probably have it while we're listening to this, right? Like it's super out. So the Questions game is out now. The Devil's Playground out now, February 3rd. And also just keep an eye out because Sean and I wanted to do this pod just to really highlight the things that we're working on, but there's so much more that we're working on too. So just continue to keep an eye. There's a lot more Making Illmatics on the way. We got some other ideas in the pipeline for different kinds of concepts of pods that we're gonna bring out soon. I got new music on deck. Sean's got secret projects on deck. Sean's got secret projects that I know about because I'm a close friend. And then he's got secret projects that I don't know about that maybe his girl knows about.
I've got a whole double life. I've got a secret family in another country with it. Like
I'm
they
not
don't
sure
even know
your
about
cat
it.
knows about some of it.
No, loose lips, man. He's out of the circle of trust.
So
he knows what he did.
We got a lot on deck, but this was a lovely conversation to have with my brother. You know what I'm saying? Love you to death. Can't nobody tell me shit about Sean Dammit. I'll punch a motherfucker in his throat. And then you're forever Sean Dammit to me.
As well, I should, and that's why I couldn't immediately find my credit on the Planet Asia album because it was actually under Sean Dammit on Discogs. So it was another life. It was another time. But yeah, this was great, and almost certainly going to split this up into 2 episodes.
Yeah, no, I know we went lit, but hey, it was fun.
Yeah, it was very fun. So till next time, peace.